Let's study. I'm ready to learn. It's been a while since I've gotten some in-depth knowledge. Lambo saved my ass. What was it, last year? I think there was a point last year when Terran started going mech almost as much as they were going bio. And I felt really lost in terms of how to get ahead against Terran, and Lambo made a really awesome in-depth guide for how to get Ling speed and overlord speed and your third base and a bunch of queens up in a really fast way, where you can identify what the opponent is going for and enter the mid game from a strong position. Because a lot of times I don't really know what's happening, or I don't understand what's happening, and then I'm just behind and everything is going to be hard to deal with. So first thing, Lambo's going for a 16 hatch. Cool. Saves him from being blocked by the probe. My commute sneeze micro there. And then he's droning up. So far, this is exactly the same as convention. Lambo tends to be a fairly standard and straight up player. I joked about this series when I was watching it live about how it was a contest for who could play more standard. But both of them tend to do the expected macro things really well. And part of the reason why standard macro is standard is because it's robust and it's not very exploitable. It doesn't really require your opponent to mess up. You just have a sequence of things lined up over the course of the game that keep you safe and also open up opportunities to deal damage. So this is a fun interaction. The probe is trying to mess up the mining of the drones and then stealing $5. So he drones up to 20 before making the overlord. That's a little bit noteworthy. If you think about that, this is a small, really small thing. You could take the overlord at 19 and it's not really going to affect the game that much. But at this level of play, people are trying to squeeze every last mineral out of their opening build. They want every edge they possibly can. And part of the reason he's making another drone before the overlord is because this hatch was taken one supply early, which means he can capitalize on mining from it that much earlier. So he went for that extra drone. He doesn't need his queens or lings or whatever out that much earlier, so getting just a little bit more income helps him to keep pace. And bear in mind, by the way the matchup works, Protoss tends to get ahead in workers in the 1 to 2 base stage, just based on the difference in mechanics between the chrono boost and the inject. And then he goes 2 queens, 4 lings, normal. This is gate nexus cyber, chrono boosting an adept. Let's see what he does with the first overlord. So he kind of flies over it. He's seeing where the chrono boost is going. If this were a stalker, he has the option to retreat to this pedestal here for high ground. He seizes an adept. He's just droning up. Ling speed, pulls 2 off gas. He took this at what supply? I would guess right around 30. Right around 30. Yeah. So he takes a 30 hatch. And then what? A drone and then an overlord? Yeah, 30 hatch, 29 drone, 30 drone, 31 drone, 31 overlord. Okay. And then it's a stalker next. Do you see he's rallying the stalker to try and push the overlord away from that pedestal? Queen is here to zone. Lings chase the shade. Stalker comes out. He reacts to put it up here. Cool. So one thing to note here is that Lambo is effectively blind of the next main gas choice for Protoss. This is a super common opening, either going for the Stalker or the Phoenix. The Stalker denies the Scout a little bit earlier, but the Phoenix is reliably going to kill it. Like, this Stalker is not going to be able to kill this Overlord until the Oracle shows up or there's other air units providing vision. So a lot of times, this makes players really concerned because it's like, I don't know what the Protoss is doing. I don't know if I should get this tech or that tech. What we should see from Lambo here is kind of a general purpose opening that just respects, okay, you're a Protoss, you have 2 bases. I'm going to try and drone responsibly and tech in a way that you can't kill me. So he's droning his 2nd base, he's making another queen. He made 2 overlords, making his spores at just before 3 minutes 40. Okay, so the Oracle helped the Stalker kill the Overlord. And now it's going to fly across the map. Lambo has 1 Ling outside the enemy base. 2 Lings over here. So he wants vision of if there's going to be a prism or if there's going to be a whole bunch of phoenixes. Because there's a huge difference in how effective an attack is going to be based on how early you see it. If he sees that it's mass phoenix, with these Lings, he can make 2 more spores here, 2 more spores here, 2 more spores here, and he's basically safe. And by the time the phoenixes get there, they're going to be mostly done, and they're not going to deal any damage. As opposed to, if he didn't have these Lings here, he's not going to see the phoenixes until this point, and the spores aren't going to be anywhere close to finishing by the time the phoenixes are on top of the drones. So cool. He hasn't taken any tech yet, aside from Ling speed. He's making queens. He has these overlords inside the base. They're not hanging past the edges. He keeps them here so the queens can defend them. This is cool. I think Cyril is someone who started doing this, and then now a lot of other good Zergs are doing it too. So he took his lair at what, around 410? A little bit, yeah, around then. Yeah, 415 or so. And a roach horn at around the same time. Cool. Now the queen, creep tumor. He takes a 2nd gas at how many drones? Oh, 2 more gases. 2 more gases at close to 50 drones. So he's been doing all of this off 1 gas. He hasn't really made much with the gas. The lair is the only thing after Ling speed. But that's good to note. Maybe I should take some notes. Learn me some shit. 48 drones, add 2 gas. Seems good. It's a really common problem to just be behind in a matchup because you took your gases too early in a way that they don't really get spent into anything efficient. I talk a lot about the Zerg power spike of 3 bases injected with mineral saturation as the point where it really starts to shine as a race in macro, whereas Protoss tends to be ahead getting to this 44 worker mark. And that's part of why there are a bajillion different Protoss all-ins off 2 bases, is that's just a power spike for them, and they can leverage that power spike into a bunch of different stuff. So here he's got 59 workers, and now he's massing roaches. So what made him decide to do that? There's one point of information that you get that requires some reading into. So the Zealots just killed the Ling, and it's 5 minutes. Does he scout this? He might just leave these there. So if Protoss takes their base at 5:15, as Showtime is doing, it's going to be off the back of something kind of aggressive. There's the sliding scale, right, of how assertive the Protoss is going to be with fighting units, as opposed to how greedily they want to take their 3rd base. The most greedy 3rd you can imagine is between 2 gateways and 3 gateways with 1 Stargate, and you have Adept Oracle, and they just sit on the 3rd. because it's so few units, they can't also attack and defend the third. So that's going to be the most passive, the most economical opening for Protoss. And that could probably happen at around 4:30. 4 minutes to 4:30 if they really wanted to rush the third base. But here he's taking it at like 5:20, which means he's going to have a lot more punching power here. Templar Archives, 1, 2, 3, 4 gateways in the main, 5, 6 gateways. So 5:15 expansion with a couple zealots and an adept, looking at 6 gateways of aggression with Zealot Archon. And you don't know for sure, like if in your own games, you don't know for sure that they're going for Zealot Archon, but part of the aspect of ZvP that you have to respect is that a lot of these heavy pressure timings don't really give you the perfect choice to craft the best counter composition against whatever their 2-base play is. Roach Queen is kind of your go-to, these are my beefy units so I don't die kind of composition. So he's just getting up to this 59 worker mark. So 59 drones into roach production versus 515 base. And another thing we want to check is when he resumes droning. So this is a really responsible time to make units. Oh, this is actually a really good point. He makes 5 overlords before making roaches. That's a super common supply block where people are like, oh crap, the Protoss is going to attack me. I need to make roaches. And then they get supply blocked for like 10 minutes. So let's say 59 drones into 5 overlords into roach. Overlords before roaches. Okay. He's got an Evo here, the third. This is an interesting placement. I'm interested by this. These are warped in very conservatively. If the Lings can find them, sometimes they can jump on these and hassle this morph, but Showtime's responsible. He keeps the Oracle there as an escort. Okay, so it's going into the main. Archon's harassing here. Observer. Now this is interesting too, because there's the fun debate with StarCraft builds of, is this an all-in? Is this an all-in? Not exactly, but Protoss pauses probe production for a pretty long time with this build. They could have all of their Nexus pointed at this third base and making probes through the attack, but with 6 gateways, there isn't enough money. This is a precision-timed build. There's just enough money to mine resources off 2 bases and make units with all the gateways as the third is getting up. But there isn't the same econ here as if it was 4 gates. If it was 4 gateways, yeah, you can make the 4 High Templar, maybe you can do a little bit of pressure in the main, or just run a couple Zealots into the third. But for that build, you could be probing through this, and he would be getting up to, say, 50 to 52 probes at this time. And then the third base finishes, and it's mostly saturated, and he booms into a 3-base economy. But this is really committed, because he's sticking with 2-base economy. He's not making probes. So he goes for a 4th base here. He sees the 2 Archons. With this Prism, he still can't tell whether it's 4 or 6 gateways, but he can probably guess at it based on the timing of the 3rd base. Okay, so Zealot Archon, and then Zealots coming over here. This is a really key point of prioritization. You want to think about where your investments are the most heavily concentrated. What does this location have? This location has a crap ton of drones. It has a Spore, a Queen, Hatch, Extractors, an Evo researching an upgrade, and a bunch of new troops coming out. So there's a lot going on at this base. At this location, there was a building Hatch. So this would be the kind of place where you just say, fine, I'm not even going to try to defend this. I've barely invested anything. He cancels the base, so he gets 225 back. So he only lost a little bit of money plus the drone, and he's going to lose a queen here. But his decision to prioritize his roaches over here is really smart, because he knows this is a more crucial location. This is a greater concentration of his edge in this game, which is economy and upgrades. Behind this, he's getting his roach speed. It's almost done. Groove spine, the hydra den. I want to see when the hydra den was timed, just so I know. I feel a little bit lost in terms of how to tech up in this situation, because sometimes it's like, should I just roach Ravager? Okay, he took this at 540, which is right when the gases of the third kick in. Okay. 540 hydra den at third base. Gas income. So his econ right now to defend this is 12 plus 3 plus 3 at third. His natural has full saturation. And then I think it's 1 base mineral, 1 gas in the main. Yep. Cool. Do you think Protoss is behind after this Archon drop? Well, we're going to see how this plays out, because this build can go a lot of different ways. I've died to this build so many times. So many times. This is like one of the best PvZ builds in the world. It's going to be amazing against Zergs who want to be greedy and who want to rush tech and drones. If they over-drone or they over-tech, they're dead. If they don't have Roach Warren, they're going to really struggle against this. Because this push just smashes through Hydras. Charge lots just destroy Hydras, and this is a point in the game when Hydra upgrades are not a factor. Hydras tend to do really well against Charge Lot Archon once they have a very large number and they have all their upgrades and stuff. Whereas right now, it's kind of a weak point. So he's making overlords and roaches. These are still patrolling. He's still not making probes. The longer he delays... Okay, now he's restarting probe production. So the probe production resumes as his attack starts. Well, he just... Yeah, now he's making 3. Cool. So he's attacking and making workers through the attack. This is really awesome positioning. So none of these zealots in the back are getting value. He should pull this back. And then the side that's winning presses forward. This is basically a perfect defense. He made the right units. He made the units at the right time. He defended in the right place. This attack would have killed most Zergs who played the video game. But Lambo made the right inferences he needed with partial information. He'd drawn the right amount. He had the correct composition. And now he's going to immediately push back. He's making 5 overlords. And now he's making Roach Hydra. So the thing that I noticed about this attack was that it is very Roach heavy. It's Roach Hydra, but it's Roach Hydra. It's mostly Roach. Units tab. He's got 25. He's got 30 Roaches and 5 Hydras. A couple Lings, a Ravager. Splits it between the 2 paths. And the reason why Roach is a cool option here is because, for one, well, he made a bunch of them to defend the Zealot Archon. And for 2, this build gets a quick single robo, and the second robo is non-existent. There are a lot of builds where they take 2 robo at the third base, or they take the second robo earlier, whereas this one committed a whole bunch to gateway units and is pretty far behind in the immortal count. This kind of Roach Hydra attack would just be decimated if someone went for chrono boosted double immortal production. You can't push into mass immortal if you have a bunch of roaches and not much else in terms of tech. But this is a specific response to the failed push on his side of the map, he spills forward with his leftover units, and he's going to go for a push here to try and punish a 3-base saturation attempt. And he does have Immortal Sentry, but if you look at the overall damage output of this army, the sentries do basically nothing. The Stalker does basically nothing. It has no upgrades in its Mass Roach Hydra. The Immortals and the Archon are really the only scary units here. The Zealot, whatever, it's a Zealot. Sentries, yeah, they're just purely for in-game map editor. Yeah, he's dead here, and this is less about, oh wow, how can he not defend Roach Hydra? He committed a whole bunch of stuff that accomplished virtually nothing. It was a perfectly defended attack. It's a bit of a risk, too. The bigger the committed attack, the more punishing it is if you fail, but also more rewarding, because sometimes you can just win, or you can mortally wound your opponent. But this is basically a story of what happens when Zerg defends the 6-gate perfectly, and then just punishes you by smashing Roach Hydra between your natural and third. It's going to be horrible against players like Lambo, though. But that's the thing, though. Players like Lambo. Lambo's incredibly good. Incredibly good. Like, he's at a peak in terms of his career. He has a really good, flexible, dynamic game sense, where he's not, like, committed to a certain tech path or play style. He's a very even kind of player. His build feels gimmicky. It's risky. It is risky. It's more risky than going for 4-gate Archon Prism into probing the third base, for sure. But it's a best of 5. In a best of 5, you mix in something that's a little bit risky, rather than playing super safe all the time. Because Lambo is also good at understanding how to play really greedy, if he knows that that makes sense. Okay. Oh my god, this game. This is one of those games where when it finishes, one of the players has to ask for a quick break before the next game because they have to take a shower. Okay. He took this at 15 supply, so it can't be blocked by the probe. Sort of SC, thank you for the host. Welcome. We're watching Lambo versus Showtime and trying to learn. We went over the Lost and Found game where he defended 6-gate charge lot Archon basically perfectly, and then pushed back and killed him with Roach Hydra with a couple Ravagers, but it was mostly Roaches. So here, Blue Shift, he went 15 hatch, so he didn't get blocked by the probe. Doing the same thing, where he gets 4 lings, so he can push the probe away from the third, 2 queens, third base at the same time, around 30 supply, and then Overlord the same time, around 33. Cool. This Overlord, keeping watch. Making another queen. It's interesting he keeps 1 queen in each base. I usually put them both at the natural. I guess it's less DPS in any one place, but if the Adept does commit to your main, for example, you have something to shoot at it. So that might be something to try. Going for 2 more Overlords. And last game, when did he put back on gas? Because I feel like this is way earlier than I usually do it. I've been putting 2 back on gas when I take my lair. Shout out to Sorta for the host. Yeah, dude. Hope you had a good stream. Hope the viewers of Sort of stream enjoyed. Okay. 3:30. 3:30. Puts back on gas. Interesting. Cool. And when he did that before, he had like 200 gas, 250 when he took his lair. It may just have to do with the 2 base mineral saturation. He's trying to get optimum mining for the bases he's defended. So this is the ZvP meme. Okay, that's kind of embarrassing. He misclicked the queen. I think his goal here was to lift the queen so the oracle could zap the drones, but he lifted a drone. At this level of play, that's a pretty big whoopsie-daisy. Lambo is responsive, though, with this queen being pulled up there. So, I mean, even if he did pick it up, it's a couple drones, but misclicks like that are a pretty big missed opportunity. Come on, Showtime. Queen's a big target. So he's doing the same thing, patrolling Lings outside the base so he can see Mass Phoenix or Prism. Notice the timing. 48 drones, add 2 gas. Yep. Same thing. 48 to 50 workers, he's adding 2 gas. Look at this mineral saturation, wow. Cool. He has 3 base mineral. Taking his lair in a roach warren. Now he's making Lings. What prompted this? He may be worried about an Adept Shade. That was at around 4:30. There was no Stalker too, which is another reason to be wary of Adept Shades. If they go for the Stalker, that's 1 fewer Adept, and if they went for Glaives or something, it's not going to be quite as strong. Whereas this was full Adept in terms of the gateway cycles earlier on. So he's got queens, 3 queens on a hotkey. Spores moved over. He's trying to focus the prism with his queens. He's got some roaches. And he went back to droning pretty early here. Pretty early. Units. Yeah, he has 9 roaches. It's not a ton. But he got the infestation pit quite fast. This is basically timed the same as the Hydra Den and Lost and Found. I wanted to double check one thing. When was the 3rd taken? Because this is different from the previous game in that Showtime is playing a lot more economical and conservative. He's not pumping out 8 gateways and trying to bash the Zergs face in. Okay, so the Lings see what looks like an intention to take a 3rd base. Okay, so this is more around 5 minutes. And probe production is continuing through this. So even though he's hit 2 base saturation, he's continuing to make probes. And whenever this 3rd base is up and ready, he can just box some of these from the natural and then click them over. And they'll start mining straight away. Where is he chrono boosting? Immortal? Cool. Forge, charge. Adding on a couple gateways. Cool. So what Lambo is trying to do right now is creep to a position where he can control the center of the map. And now he has 68 drones, pretty much perfect 3 base saturation, and he makes 4 overlords and heck muffins. Mass swarm host. But this is after having a roach queen ling buffer, so he doesn't die horribly to some silly attack. This overseer with the queens is very important. Losing that oracle to the queens is a big mistake. Okay. Nice drop of the Archons there. But this is one of those examples, I think, where he didn't actually do anything to Lambo. Lambo got to get 3 base saturated super fast. Only making, what, a handful of roaches? Maybe he made like 10. and then he got to go directly into Swarm Host, and the creep wasn't contested either. He lost the Observer to the Queen Overseer, and he lost the Oracle. So both of his methods of detection were removed, so he can just creep freely on the map. And now Showtime is in a position where he feels like he can't spare a Robo-Cycle on an Observer, so he's forced to make Gateway units and Immortals against this, and he can't stop the creep. So I would say from here he's effectively dead. His economy is nice. He actually has more workers than Lambo right now, because Lambo invested in some spines to entrench his position. And then one other point about Lambo's 200 supply composition right now is that pretty much all of his units are really supply hungry. The main downside of the Roach is that it's super supply hungry for its value. Swarm Host is the same thing. It costs a lot of supply for its mineral and gas value. So him having a slightly lower drone count, I think, is a good call. It offsets some of the downside of that. And then he's getting value instead of from drones, like more drones and more income. He has free units coming out of these locusts. And he's trying to pull Showtime's army around. He can go up and push whenever the locusts are going. Roaches are fighting. Yeah, the heavy gateway unit count is really good against hydras, like Charge Zealots. Charge Zealot Immortal Storm, super good. But this composition is super bad against Swarm Hosts. You really don't want to be spending storms on units with a cooldown, because then you have High Templar with no energy, which are basically worthless, unless you want to make Archons out of them. So, what are the ways that he could have dealt with these? Well, Void Ray would be something. Like, it's not a fantastic unit, but it counters the Roach, and they could overpower the Queens. He didn't get vision of the Infestation Pit, did he? Looks like he did at some point. So he did see the Infestation Pit. I'm not sure what his thought process was around that, but him having more buildings at the front and just one robo, a fleet beacon, it seems like his response wasn't really one that effectively counters a Roach Ravager Swarm Host style. He has a great army against Hydras. If Lambo went Hydra Bane or Roach Hydra or even Roach Hydra Lurker or something, he has a nice composition. But against this, it's really bad. Zealot counterattack is nice. Lambo doesn't really need this base. You can take this base if he wants to. Cool. Well, he basically won. There isn't really too much more to see here. It's one of those things where the scales have been tipped in Zerg's favor, and it's just a matter of time before Protoss falls over. Yep, there it goes. GG. And after that game, Lambo had to go take a shower because it was so dirty. So dirty. Swarm Host and ZvP Monka S. Okay. Acid Plant. How come Swarm Hosts aren't used much in ZvP? Well, because Swarm Hosts are bad against a lot of air options. If Protoss went Mass Phoenix, they basically straight up deny Mass Swarm Host because they can just go pick them up and kill them. Unless there's a ton of Hydras as well, which is very expensive to have all that. In addition, a lot of the value timings, like if Protoss plays an aggressive style, say the way that Showtime played on Lost and Found, you have to make more direct fighting units like Roach Hydra or Hydraling Bane to fight them head on. Because if they have a big gateway army, or gateway with a few immortals or something, and they go across the map and they're hassling you, and you throw your locust at them, they can just walk back, wait, and then go in and kill you. And if you throw small amounts of locusts, they can just kill them before they do anything. So the Swarm Host is going to be the best option when, like in Lambo's case, you have amazing creep in the center of the map. You have enough buffer that you're not going to die to a timing. So he had a bunch of Roach Queen Ling. And then doing it on a short rush map is going to be better. Because one of the nerfs to Swarm Host was that they're slower off creep now. So on a map like Acid Plant, this is a pretty okay one, because if you can control this high ground area, then the Swarm Host can run back and forth here and just throw locusts at the opponent's bases. But on the biggest maps, they can be a little bit worse. Colossi are pretty good at dealing with Swarm Host as well, because they're not limited by their energy in the same way that High Templar are. And if you have, say, 3 or 4 of them, they can just zap right over the Locust Wave. Colossi deal bonus damage to light. So if Protoss chrono boosts out some Forge upgrades and gets up a handful of Colossi, and then they have some other like anti-air stuff to support, they can just run over a Zerg. Most of these games are going to come down to who gets ahead or who falls behind. There are those compositional things. Like I think the last game, Lambo went for a more unorthodox composition, and Showtime just played standard as though he was against Mass Hydra. So that's a rare example of where I would say composition was a big factor in the outcome of the game. He lost his Oracle and the Observer, and his Phoenix Oracle thing was messed up. So it wasn't really a great game from him. So he's got 2 Stargate Phoenix. This is quite a popular build. It's really nice because it gives you fantastic vision of what's going on. It's not as lethal as some attacks, because obviously you can't kill the buildings to get the Zerg to leave the game. But at most levels of play, I would say a Zerg's anti-Phoenix procedure is pretty lackluster. So you can punish it quite a bit. Lambo's good, though. Look at this. The Overlords are already grouped up and stuff. So he doesn't really have to move them too much. He's even making a Spore here, so with the Lings he knows. And he's trying to pull his drones away. The Phoenixes are going to get something. They make so many of them that you're going to lose stuff here and there. But he already has 68 drones. And he's just making drones through this. The 3rd base is up. Showtime's taking 2 gases. It's unclear behind this attack whether Protoss is going for air or ground. In my personal experience, I would say generally I face Protosses who go ground off the back of this, as opposed to air. So if they're going for air as a follow-up, Zerg can mass Queen Hydra and then go across the map, and Queen Hydra is pretty good against air. So by going into ground, you can punish those mass Hydra things. Lambo's going Corruptors here, which is unique. I don't normally do this. Corruptors with the armor upgrade, which does make them a lot better at direct fighting. He's going for the Forge with Caustic. Void Rays from Showtime. See, this looks more responsive to me in Showtime's side, where the way that he's building up his army is more aware of what Lambo's army looks like. So Lambo's attacking with Queen Hydra, Corruptor, but his ground presence is strong. He has 4 Immortals, because he went double Robo Immortal. The 5th Immortal is almost done. He's got a nice reservoir of shield battery energy here. He's got sentries to force field stuff off. The Phoenixes can support. And yeah, the Void Rays are really nice against the Corruptors. I was really impressed by this army. I was kind of joking about it when I saw it live, about it being a really strange and funny composition. But it works in this situation. These Corruptors are basically worthless now. Like, what are they going to do? They can't fight the Void Rays. They could fight the Phoenixes, but why would the Phoenixes leave the Void Rays? Protoss can just defend, and the Void Ray is the anchor here. The Void Ray Immortal. Those are the beefy anchor units. So Zerg's denying this 4th base. Taking a gold base, taking this base. So Lambo has the map, but this Protoss composition is scary. Zerg's composition is bad. What is this? 6 queens? Some of them are injecting. 3 Ravagers. Okay. 1 roach. 36 hydras. So it's almost full hydra at this point, which is directly countered by storm. There are void rays, which the hydras sort of counter, but they only really counter void rays when they can attack move freely into them. And High Templar prevent that. This is such an awesome Protoss army. Yeah. Immortals are kind of a critical mass unit, where as you get more and more of them, it becomes harder and harder for Zerg to deal with it using ground only. They're just so beefy, and yes, they are better against armored than they are against light, but they're just so hard to kill, hence the name. Punching in here. And one thing that we see with the one base Robo Shield Battery Cannon Prism all-ins is the Immortals have this barrier ability. Absorbs 100 damage, 6-second cooldown lasts for 2 seconds. So a third of the time, oh no, it's once every 32 seconds it can occur. So they have an additional buffer of health where the Immortal can go in, the barrier is activated, they absorb 100 damage for free, and then they can move that Immortal to the back, and then another Immortal has it. So you could do the math here of the extra 100 HP for all of these Immortals in the fights, which makes them super hard to deal with. And generally what Protoss wants to do is trade out the cheap gateway units, like the Zealots and stuff. Keep the Immortals behind those, where the Immortals sometimes emerge at the front line, take a few hits, use their barrier, use their shields, and then fall back. Now, Hydra is not going to solve this. That was an awesome game. Super smart. Cool. What's up, Biddy Botters? Asking about coaching. I think I see yours. Yeah, Silver League scouting APM is very low. Sweet. Yeah, so to prepare, you would need 2 to 3 replays from each matchup where you felt like you played your best but still lost. I would take a crack at this, the starter kit command. Starter kit. That's going to give you some basic build and guidance and stuff to create a foundation that we can work off of some. But yeah, I've gotten a massive influx of coaching requests since the class and whatnot about, almost 2 weeks ago now. I think I got 14 or 15 coaching requests in that time. So yeah, I don't take everyone for coaching as well. There is a selection process. It's mainly going to be based on your awareness of what my teaching method is like, and also some clear indication of what your goals are. Sweet. Let's do the last game. Appreciate the interest. The interest. As an example, when people ask in a sort of format, hey, I'm bad, help me, it doesn't really resonate with me. I mean, I understand the feeling of being lost in StarCraft and wanting help, but being able to articulate kind of where you are and specifically what you think you're struggling with, it indicates a certain mindfulness that makes me excited to coach somebody. Does that make sense? Could Lambo have responded better that game to defend? He didn't create a good transition for himself behind that Queen Hydra Ravager Roach attack. I think the attack was cool, like he established map control, there was a gold base behind it, but he didn't have anything like a Lurker Den, for example, where he pushes with that pretty low-tech army and denies Lambo's 4th base, and then falls back on, say, Lurker or Broodlord, a more sturdy and robust ground unit, so that Showtime can't just push back and kill him. Memes. Okay, so Dreamcatcher. The next games. Lambo goes for 15 hatch, so he doesn't get blocked on the short maps. Keeps this Overlord here to watch for Cannon Rush. Showtime is a respectful macro player. I have never seen him do any of those shenanigans. Okay. 3rd queen. He keeps the queens in separate locations. That's something I don't do that I may try. Overlord sees Phoenix, 2 Adepts in the wall. 2nd Stargate, so he's going to go for the Phoenix meme. It could technically be the Oracle meme. Like, we don't know really until now that it's Phoenix. Mass Oracle was a lot more popular. The Oracle did get nerfed a little bit. Mainly because it was a bit too strong, I could say. Oracle's just flying over and killing Mass Hydra was kind of sad. Okay, so he is getting some damage here with the Phoenixes. Picking some drones between the bases. 3rd base is oversaturated a little bit. 74 drones, wow. Wow, the economy. Look at these lings. He does this every game, it's awesome. And this too, look at this. Who said Phoenixes deny vision? They don't. They just change the role of vision from being the Overlord's job to the Zergling's job. Thank you, Zerglings, for picking up the slack. The Overlords are very scared right now. They're very scared, and for good reason. This is a bad match to be an Overlord. You're just born, and then you're just told to hide by the spores. Just hide. No adventure for you today. It is only seclusion. Bunch of gateways. Roach hydra. Roach hydra, 3 spores per base. Lair, hydra speed. It's going for +2 range, infestation pit, baneling nest. He's got options, he's got tech. Oh, he's going swarm host, so heck. Okay. See, Phoenix is denying some of those swarm hosts. 14 of them. Look at the creep down the middle. That's another downside of Phoenixes, though, right? Is they can't heck with the creep tumors. The creep tumor can just go all the way across. They can't pick up a creep tumor. They would need like a zealot or a zealot and an observer, or the oracle and an observer. Sorry, oracle and a ground unit to kill this stuff. So he got to just walk all the way across the map. And this is a short rush map too. So it's kind of similar to Blue Shift, where yes, there are a lot of map obstacles and grass and bramble bushes and walls and stuff, but the walking distance is very short, assuming these rocks are open and you can just pass through here without dying to some huge army. He has a bunch of these shield batteries. And then again, he has an anti-hydra composition that doesn't deal super well with swarm hosts. I really feel like the robotics facility should be the answer here for Protoss.
Metamorphosis complete.
What? Make Colossi. I just heard the notification for someone raiding, but I don't see who did it. Is my chat messed up? Hello? Oh, Apoptosis, thank you for the raid. My chat was messed up. So this 16 swarm host count is on purpose. It's not just like he held down the button and he got 16. If you notice, that was just enough to fly over and kill a Nexus. Full HP to 0. So you have a lot of these squad sizes that pro gamers know why it's sized a certain way, but a lot of times we just copy it without thinking about it. But this 16 swarm host with the +2 attack from ranged is just enough to kill a Nexus. It's just good to know. 16 swarm hosts kill a Nexus. Good job. Good job. This base is being taken. It's being contested by 2 angry zealots. He does have a mothership, which is nice. But the army underneath it is pretty small. Immortals. Carriers. Carriers. Carrier High Templar. Scooty, thank you. It's a baby, 9 months in a row. 73 probes, 63 drones. Same principle as Blue Shift, where the drone count is low to compensate for how supply hungry the swarm hosts are. Hydra's got a really big surround. Lambo had a pretty big bank. He's very supply blocked, unfortunately. Unfortunately, we're very supply blocked. Locusts and Hydras. Hydras are killing the interceptors. Hydras rush in, pick some carriers. And here he's taken the area between the 2 most important Protoss bases. So the Lynx can just kill this stuff. The Hydra's can attack this stuff. SG. Good stuff, Showtime. Yeah, he really used the swarm hosts on these short rush maps. I would love to see a robotics facility. He has the double robo. I mean, 4 Colossi would make this whole situation a lot better. Carrier, generally speaking, is a really nice late game transition. But with the pressure that these swarm hosts are applying, Colossi would be a really nice way of just stepping over that and making this supply effectively worthless. That's kind of what happened with the Void Ray to Corruptor, right? Because Lambo made Corruptors in response to the Phoenixes, which were made worthless by the Void Rays. So when they're both maxed out, Lambo's army was pretty poopy compared to Showtime's because he had a bunch of dead supply in the Corruptors. Swarm heck. Nice up. Nice up. Well, cool. That was Lambo versus Showtime. Hope you enjoyed going over it with me, Famberlam.